Hello, and welcome to this edition of COVID Ethics Update, a service of the Center for Practical Bioethics during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Danetta Sloan, and I work with the Center for Practical Bioethics. Our topic today is an African American perspective of faith, ethics, and advanced care planning during COVID-19. And our special guest today is Dr. Anderson. Dr. Anderson is a minister. She is a licensed social worker. She is a professor of social work and an author and one of the leading experts in advanced care planning in the faith community. Welcome, Dr. Anderson. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So to get started, I just have a few questions I would like to ask you about and to get your perspectives on. The first question is, as a social worker and a minister, looking at all the statistics now showing the higher risk of African Americans dying to COVID-19, what ethical values do you think are evident here?
Wow, I really, my mind immediately goes to the high alarming rate of disproportionality in the death rates with COVID-19. But one of the social worker values that I feel very strongly about is that the one of social justice is a critical one in this time. It would take more than we have time for on our interview today to kind of delve into the complexities of racism and institutionalized racism. But that is the root cause of the disparaging treatment that we see of people of color, not only in healthcare, but it goes all through all life societal areas of unemployment, of our employment, of education, of housing, every part of society. So yes, this is very alarming to me, the fact that so many African Americans who have pre-existing conditions are more susceptible to this disease and that are dying at a high rate. What we've seen in Chicago and other cities, New York, Milwaukee, Louisiana, some parts of Louisiana, reflect the same disproportionality. And I think that is a social justice issue.
Yes, it is. I do agree with you. As a minister, what do you say about the inequity that's now spotlighted? It's been on the news quite a bit recently.
Yes, I see, as a minister first, I believe in equity. I believe that we are God's creation and that each of us have an inherent right to have dignity and worth. And that's another social work value here that plays dignity and worth of the person. Luke, I think 6:31 talks about do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
I think that's very applicable. And I think that in terms of the inequity that we see, that we need to really be conscious about moving forward in a real way to bring about social change in our world, especially in our communities where people of color are being disparaged. You know, the treatment toward them has been now the spotlight in the real world to everyone to see.
Right, right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That brings up another question for me, though. You know, we've seen a difference in opinions as to what churches should or shouldn't be doing as far as gathering for Easter worship services and funerals. And you know, that ritual for funerals is really prevalent among African Americans. What would you say about the role of the church in the Black community now as it relates to COVID-19?
Well, we know that the Black church is a trusted institution in the community, right? It is there, it provides sustenance, it provides caring, connection to the members. It's the way that needs are met, the physical, social, biopsychosocial, and spiritual needs are met through the church, the Black church. So I see that that's not going to stop with COVID-19. As my grandma used to say, where there's a will, there's a way. And so there is a way, and the way that churches are coming together to find ways to get around the fact that the social distancing is in place. They are, doing pickup and delivery, food deliveries. They're organizing Bible studies online. People are doing connect calls to members, especially the elderly who don't have technological savviness yet, but they're learning. So I see the Black church as a major player, always has been and always will be. Some of the major and in talking about the funerals and the rituals of how we do homegoing services for those that have gone on, and honoring them and saying goodbye, this social distancing is definitely impacting that ritual for sure, where people can't connect, can't talk, can't hug, all of the things that we do as a part of our, all people that we do. We need to hug. We need to let people know that we care about them, that we're concerned. And so that is definitely a deterrent with this social distancing mandate. But however, even though we are not able to meet physically, we are still the church. We are the church. Yes. And that's right. And we have a connection, a spiritual connection, even apart, that is really coming into play in our world for people to be encouraged and to see that nothing can stop the church of God. That's my thought.
You make me want to say amen. Thank you for the thoughtfulness. Things are happening so quickly, and the fatality numbers are rising daily as we see. Some people are passing away in a matter of days after contracting the illness. Can you talk a bit about the pandemic as it relates to advanced care planning?
Yeah, none of us really expected to be living through a pandemic. But suddenly we're all affected by it somehow, by this unseen, for real, very real threat to our very lives. COVID-19 is a life-threatening illness. And the best time to prepare for any life-threatening illness is what? Beforehand, right? We know that in hospice and in this area. So I learned this myself, though, through a near-death experience that I had a year after I wrote the guide, the African American guide, What Y'all Gonna Do With Me. And I had this life-threatening illness came up on me. I was active, I was healthy, and then I found myself, actively dying, to be honest. I won't go into the details because we don't have time, plus it's not really relevant, but I can tell you that spiritual part of me, that unknown, unseen, that reality of knowing God was my strength and my hope through that time as I lay there unable to do for myself. At one point, I even felt myself leaving my body, and I heard a voice say to me, "I will restore you." And in that, I know that within 24 hours, everything in my body stabilized, and I'm a miracle walking, and the doctors could not explain how that reversal happened. But then again, faith is part of that in anybody's culture. We believe that there's a higher power that is over what we might think or what we might go in on our own strength. But for me, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for each day that I have life. I know that in that time I was walking through the valley of the shadow of death. I had no plan in place. That's the part I want to mention. I had no plan in place. My family did not know my wishes. They didn't know what to do with me. To be honest, I hadn't even done an advanced care directive, even after I had written the book and was telling other people to do it. So guilty. Guilty. But I did later complete that once I had my recovery, and I was able to also help my mother do the same thing when before she went through her death and dying experience. What that did was her being able to do that in advance gave us, first of all, the family the ability to honor her wishes as she wanted it to be. And it also gave our family confidence and unity in a time where so many families are just at each other's throat. And I've worked with many families, I'm sure as you have, that you see at the end of life, not knowing what that person's wishes are. There's all kinds of opinions of who should do what and why. And families actually, some family members never speak to each other again. I think that's not the time to have those kind of arguments. I believe that's the time for unity. So I shared my mom's story of death on a blog recently on CTAC, to not only honor her, but in recognition of a National Decisions Day, National Healthcare Decisions Day, rather, that's coming up on April 16th. And I say this and I connect my near-death experience and the experience of my mother to my rationale for the urgent need for us to deal with or to do ACP or advanced care planning during this pandemic for two reasons. First, I had a sudden serious illness. I was a healthy individual. What we're seeing now, people that are healthy, not only those with pre-existing conditions, but healthy people are also contracting this. And that makes it be an urgent need, that we need to let our family members know what our wishes would be. And the second reason for that is that it's time for us to plan. I say prepare to plan for life after now. Prepare for life after now, which is the acronym PLAN, P-L-A-N. I coined that sometime after I recovered from my illness. And it's time because people need to let their families know first, what they want. Do they want to be on a breathing machine if they're not breathing on their own? Do they, who do they want to make those decisions for them? What family member or loved one or trusted one that they would have make that decision? And then not only that, but telling that person so that that person knows that they are the one that's been called to advocate and stand and speak for them if they can't speak for themselves. And then on top of that, letting the family and other loved ones know what that person who has been assigned to do that role is, so that there is unity during this time. We don't have time right now to be infighting about anything. We need to be unified. And unfortunately, with this pandemic, it is causing death at an alarming rate.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you so much for those great points. And I think we're approaching the end of our time. This conversation could go on for hours, I'm sure, but you have made such great points, and we really appreciate your time and you being able to be with us today. Do you have any resources that you would like to mention for the community or for the African American community that people may seek out? Or
sure, I would. Yes, the booklet is available. It's on my website, hearttones.com. And it's also on the EOLcareguide.org.com, the EOLcare.org website. But we'll make that available through, some way that people can access those resources. They're culturally written, they're culturally sensitive, they're simple to read. Resources to help people of color understand some of the medical terminology of some of the things that are important in terms of healthcare decision making. And so, yes, that resource is available, as well as some new ones that we're working on as we speak to create some new informational pieces that can go out to dispel some of the myths that are in our communities right now, and to get some culturally sensitive ways of working through this.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to the audience. Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of COVID Ethics Update, a service of the Center for Practical Bioethics. If you have questions, ideas, or comments, or suggestions of any kind for future editions, please email us at COVID at practicalbioethics.org. Please subscribe to the Center's YouTube channel and sign up to receive the COVID ethics updates in your inbox. I think there's a bell at the bottom if you're watching through YouTube. There's a bell that you would click on. And our inbox again is practicalbioethics.org. Thanks again for joining us. Be safe and stay well.